approached during the battle by a team connected with the OVO side and asked me to show the boys some love. You know, again, I was being as unbiased as possible. I was calling it like I said, but they asked me, yo, we know you're unbiased. Really said it. We know you're unbiased. And we like that you're unbiased and you really try to call it straight, but can you show the guys some love?
I'm calling this one Drake Vengeance Day, Hip Hop Journalist Edition. And of course, we're talking about Rob Markman, the Rob Markman and Drake incident that just happened recently. Let me just say this here in the onset. Drake has every right to be annoyed with Rob Markman. I haven't heard anyone say that since this whole situation happened. Not one person who has a pair of working eyes like me and a brain like me who has watched what Rob Markman has done, right? And I like Rob Markman. I think he's a brilliant, hip hop contributor, not only as a writer, but even his work over at Genius, and hell, even as a rapper, right? But we can't let you, Rob Markman, move around with this recent situation like you've been this innocent cherub of hip hop and you've done nothing wrong. Absolutely not. Your hands aren't clean, and I'm going to explain what I mean in just a moment by that. You all just saw why in the clip to open up the show what Rob Markman did that made Drake as annoyed, in my opinion, as he clearly is with Rob Markman. That didn't just come out of the blue. The tweet and everything that we're going to go over here in a second, that didn't come out of nowhere. Just recently via Instagram, Drake commented on a little clip, a little video, an old video of Rob Markman interviewing Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez was rapping a Lil Wayne verse, and he left sort of some room on the end for Rob Markman to finish the verse out. Rob Markman couldn't do it. He couldn't finish the verse. Not a big deal. This is why Drake said, of course, this goof, Rob Markman, couldn't finish the bar. ... Free Tory. Okay. Then Rob Markman responded with, I could call him names too, but he loved to sue. Now there's the context. Okay. But I want to fill in some holes here because there are a lot of content creators and a lot of hip hop fans, who in the recent days since this all went down have been saying stuff like, Drake is at it yet again. Drake is, targeting yet another black, innocent hip hop journalist, right? Absolutely not. Not on my watch. Absolutely not. That's nonsense. That's not what happened. And many of you have sat by knowing that that's not what happened and you didn't say a word. And so I got to come on here and right these wrongs, right? Why won't Drake go on any black hip hop media spaces? I don't understand it, which, by the way, is a super exaggerated criticism of Drake. But the clip you all saw in the opening of the show is why. This situation with Rob Markman in general and how it's panned out in the days since is why. This is why. Rob Markman, before a certain point in the battle last year, is a hip hop journalist that I did regard as being one of, if not the most unbiased person when it came to hip hop media as far as the Drake-Kendrick battle went, right? Before this incident, before this situation last year, right? And so the clip that you all just watched is the moment that I started to change my mindset on that. And I started thinking like, wait a minute, Yo, Rob Markman is biased. He is biased. The passive aggressiveness in his tone and everything that he said, in that clip, right? It told you everything you needed to know about how he really feels about Drake, right? And I'm gonna tell you why. It's because clearly the only reason that Rob Markman thought to say anything about being contacted by Drake's people was for clout. That's it. Well, what do you mean by that? He was trying to out Drake, and specifically, Drake's people, but that's Drake, by implying that his people were essentially wanting him, Rob Markman, to lie about who he thought was winning the battle. He didn't say that, but that's clearly what he was implying. Clearly. And I got a problem with that because, number one, even judging by his own words, that's not what they were attempting to do. That's number one. Number two, he kept emphasizing in his retelling of this story, which had no business being spoken about on his platform, especially at that point during the battle. But my gut tells me that he saw the views and the engagement that other content creators that have been in hip hop journalism or hip hop content creation that long, meanwhile, Rob Markman has done it forever, right? He saw how much comments and engagement these people were getting. He saw that. And I'm telling you, I can't prove this, but I'm telling you that day where he chose to speak about this on his show was his way of getting his own piece of the pie of comments and engagement, and probably subscribers as well, that a lot of these other content creators were getting that were doing and saying a lot more salacious things about Drake and about Drake versus Kendrick during the battle, in my opinion, right? And so, the question is like, why did Rob Markman even have to say anything about being contacted by Drake's people? He didn't have to say a word. He really didn't. And I'm pretty sure that in his years of being a hip hop journalist, he's been contacted countless times about things by people who spoke about subjects that, had Rob Markman wanted to, he could have mentioned it on his show and gotten rewarded greatly in the form of subscribers or likes or whatever, and he didn't do it. And he didn't do it because it wasn't the ethical thing to do, journalistically, right? So why did he decide to do it this time with Drake and Drake's situation during the battle? For the reason I just told you. Clout. He'll never admit that, I'm sure, but that's what it was. And Drake knows that, and that's why he waited. He had bigger fish to fry, but in my opinion, that's why Drake, took this up as an opportunity to go, yeah, this dude's a goof. And it was a little something. It wasn't, a full-fledged punch, but it was a little something. And Rob Markman deserved it. That's the key here. He absolutely, positively deserved it. If I see another content creator come out and go, why is Drake bullying Rob Markman? The sweet cherub of love. He's just here to make everyone's day. Hell out of here with that. Because if that was true, he wouldn't have clout chased last year, and he deserved a little bit of a sting from Drake for doing it. Good Drake. That's why these are known as Drake Vengeance Day, right? That's why this is called that, because that's what it is. And Rob Markman absolutely deserved it. He goes, what'd he say in the tweet? And I keep saying tweet, in the Instagram clip, he goes, but if I made, the same, if I joked about you or said something about you or called you names, you but you love to sue, right? That's my other problem with Rob Markman, right? That's irresponsible. It's irresponsible. You aren't Rob Markman, neurosurgeon. You aren't Rob Markman, horse jockey. You're Rob Markman, hip hop journalist, well-respected hip hop journalist. Therefore, when you say things, they have to have a certain amount of journalistic integrity. You know good and well that that Drake was not suing. You know that he is not suing because someone called him a few names. You know that. And you know that even implying it on the humbug like you did on a throwaway Instagram comment, right? You know that it's looked at differently when you say it. But Drake did it. Drake doesn't have hip hop journalists behind his name. It's that simple. You know why he's suing. You know that Drake believes that his own record label colluded with Kendrick Lamar and a string of other rappers to irreparably harm his career. You know that. So don't act like this is a big shocker to you. You know that's what he believes. And because you know that, even if you haven't read one page of the legal filings, which is irresponsible if that's true, you should know not to say things like that. That is unacceptable, right? Okay. Now, I want to end this by us taking a peek at what Rob Markman said all these years later. I believe it was 6 or 7 years ago when Rob Markman originally interviewed Tory Lanez. So this was a number of years ago. But just the other day, a day or two ago, Rob Markman posted a video to his YouTube channel where he spoke pretty frankly and pretty openly about this. I want to read you what he said. Rob Markman said, usually, I try to lead with positivity. I guess when discussing these things, he said, it actually pisses some people off that I'm not like more mean, right? And specifically when covering the Drake and Kendrick battle, for example, he said, I called it like I saw it. I try to call it like I said, balls and strikes. What'd he say? And now I may say I don't like a song. I may say I didn't like a line, or I didn't like an approach, or I ain't like a beat, or I may critique things for sure, but I do it my way. I don't call anybody out their name. I don't get disrespectful. And when covering this lawsuit, I've said openly, I do not like the lawsuit, but I didn't personalize it against him. Hey, I don't like the action. Hey, I didn't like the song. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. But I don't make it personal. And that's important to me because there's a lot of that type of content out there. Media personalities dissing artists, really getting into it. Then the back and forth happens. Okay. So like that was the gist of what he said. Now, here's the thing. That comment is exactly the passive aggressiveness that I'm talking about. Because even though that comment in and of itself, there was nothing wrong with it, except for the fact that it's not true. I would have said all of that was true before the clip that I opened up the show with. Rob Markman said some pretty, passive aggressive, but in my opinion, mean things. You don't have to be, mean isn't just yelling and screaming. Mean is also, having a conversation that was intended to be private about essentially helping Drake out in any way you can. And then you out him by reporting on it, even though you knew you had no intentions of helping whatsoever. That's mean. That's mean. If you come out and go, hey, Joe asked to borrow $20 last week, but I told him no. That's mean. You're telling everyone that that Joe needed your help. So now people are going to ask questions about why Joe doesn't have $20 and you didn't even help. That's mean. So mean is not just yelling and screaming and throwing things at people. Mean is also, and here's my entire point, having a lack of consideration, having a lack of discretion. Half of your role as a journalist is discretion. Drake had every right to be annoyed with you. And I'm glad he said what he said because you deserved it. And if you're being honest with yourself, Rob Markman, you know I'm right.